All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. And as part of the Rankin Technical College EWD 1000 Web Development Technologies course, I've been creating a series of video presentations that are based off of the Mozilla Developer Network Learn Web Development series. I'm in the Tools and Testing section talking client-side JavaScript frameworks, and we're talking React. And I'm in the componentizing our React app. And we notice, so far we've come in and we've added a name attribute to each one of our components, a completed attribute to each one of our components, but right now they all share the same ID, which isn't a good idea, especially if we want to eventually put this into a database. So I'm going to go and add another component here. And now we've got that. So now we've got a name, a completed, and an ID for each one of these. I don't think that spacing in there is going to hurt anything, but you can really see it now. All right. Now, again, we have to go back to our to-do.js and make use of that prop. It says here it needs to replace the value of the ID in there. So there it is. So let's go in and find that div in our to-do.js file. And I think that's the one that's right here. Whoops, I didn't want to do that, so let's see. I think that'll fix it. All right. Now, I'm not sure. Let's take a quick look and refresh. And I was going to say, I don't know if we're going to actually see anything different in here because we're not showing IDs right now anyway. But each task now has its own ID. And notice now we can come in and do this as well. All right, while it's running. We don't have any edit, delete functionality. Our all doesn't work. Our add here doesn't work. Our completed doesn't work. So we're getting there, but we still have a ways to go. All right. It says, so far we're making good use of React, but we could do better. Our code is repetitive. The 3 lines that render the to-do are almost identical with only one difference, the value of each prop. It says we can clean this up by using one of the core abilities. So in other words, React supports iteration, also known as repetition or looping. To use iteration, we should first rethink our tasks. Each of the tasks currently contains 3 pieces of information. And I'm going to read this to you in the order in which they're in there. That is a unique ID, a name for the task, and whether or not it's been checked. This data translates nicely to an object. All right. Since we have more than one task, an array of objects would work well. So this says, the fact that we're using the curly braces like this says that these are objects. The fact that we have them in brackets means that it's an array. And since we're using the Pascal casing, in fact, since this is a constant, it's a good thing to put it in uppercase. So let's grab all this. So we want to go back into our index.js and beneath the final import, add this. And I don't think that's open. Now we'll pass the data to app as a prop called tasks. The final line should now read this. So in other words, we don't need that subject equals Clarice anymore. All right. Now, if this is working the way I'm envisioning it working, I'm going to come back to here and over to here, and I'm going to refresh, and it looks the same. That's actually a very good thing. But it says that basically we're getting all the information now from the object array of our properties data. Again, all caps have no special meaning in JavaScript. They're a convention that tells others. That's more or less in most programming languages. You tend to put most of your constants, if not all in other languages, in uppercase to show that indeed they are constants. All right. To render our array of objects, we have to turn each one into a to-do component. So that's what we have to do next here. JavaScript gives us an array method for transforming data into something else, array.prototype.map. Now, this is one of the ones that we will be going over both in the AWD 1000 class, and we will be going over it in detail because we didn't last semester in the AWD 1111 class. But let's grab this. In fact, let's just take a look at what they're showing here. The map method creates a new array. All right. So notice we've got an array here called array1. We want to create a new array called map1. And what is it going to be? Each number doubled. So that should be 2, 8, 18, and 32. Okay. Above the return statement of app, let's make a new constant called task list and use the map function. So let's start by turning our tasks array into something simple, the name of each task. So above that return statement, we want to add this. All right, right there. Plus, we want to come in here, and where we have these, we want to come in and replace all the children of the UL with this. I don't know if we're already using this or not, but I'm just going to grab everything. So we're going to replace the entire UL with that. And the key takeaway from this is the fact that now is this task list. That task list is going to be this. All right, that we have up here called task list. So it's the task name that so all that we're putting in there is name. So what is it? It's eat, sleep, repeat, I believe. And there's no formatting being done on these whatsoever as of right now. So if I take this, and I don't even have to refresh, notice what we have now. That doesn't look very good, but the point is we're now using objects in order to be able to do this. So that's a great start. To fix this, we need to return a to-do component from our map. All right, remember that JSX allows us to mix up JavaScript and markup. Let's try the following instead of what we have already. So come back up to the top here and replace that with this. What did that do? Again, I may be going a little ahead of myself here, but looks a little better. All right. It doesn't have the names, but we'll see if we can fix that in a second. Look again at our app. Now our tasks look more like they used to, but they're missing their names. Remember that each task we map over, it has an ID, name, and check properties. If we put all of that together, we get code that looks like this. So instead of just saying the whole thing, we want the ID, the name, and whether or not it's completed. I love the way they do this because they're being just very literal with it in the way they're going about doing all this. So if we take a look at what we have in here now, looks just the same way that it did before, but again, we're now using objects. All right. So let's see. We don't have too much left in here, which is great. All right, now that React is rendering our tasks out of an array, it has to keep track of which one is which in order to render them properly. React tries to do its own guesswork to keep track of things, but we can help it out by passing a key. Key is a special prop that you cannot use for any other purpose. Because keys should be unique, we're going to use the ID as the key. So notice ID is both the ID and it's the key. You should always pass a unique key to anything you render when you're when you're iterating. It says nothing obvious will change in the browser, but if you do not use unique keys, React will log warnings to your console, and your app may not react the way you want it to. So let's come back to here. And we are again going to change this. I do like also the way they broke this up here over multiple lines. So let's do this. I'm going to move all this stuff over one tab. All right. And then that'll work. Well, actually, let's see. All right. So we'll move that over one and that over like this. All right. And we should see no difference when we go back to here. And I will refresh just to be sure and nothing has changed. That's okay. Now that we've got the most important part sorted out, we can turn to the rest of the app's components. Remembering that components are obvious pieces of UI or reused pieces of UI, we can make two more components, a form component and a filter button component. So since we know we need both, we can batch some of the file creation together with a terminal command. So we can tell it to do the two touches in a row. This is just the same as though we did as if we said touch source/component/form.js, hit enter, and then did a touch source/component/filter button.js. But again, because I'm trying to be a little bit complete here and giving you this entire experience, let's leave that run. Let's open up another. Get bash right there. And we'll paste that in. So that should touch those two files, which means that now if I go look into my source components, I now have a form and a filter button. They're both empty, but I've got those in there now. Open up the form and do the following. Import React to the top of the file like we did earlier. Make yourself a new form component with the same basic structure as to do, and export that component. And then export it. Copy the form tags, and everything between them from inside JS and paste them, and then export form at the end. So this should look like this, in other words. All right, so that should fix that one. And let's open up the other one, because I'll imagine that that's what we're going to do next is the filter button. It says you might notice that we are making the same mistake here as we made for the first to-do component, in that each button will be the same. That's fine. We'll fix it up later on. Let's make use of our new components. Add some more import statements to the top of of app.js to import them. So we need these two lines in our app.js. Well, we already had the to-do one, so I think we're okay with that. In fact, let's just grab everything that they've got there. I don't think we had the React one, but we can put it in there. It should not hurt anything. There we go. Now we've got the form and we've got the filter button. Good. Then update the return statement of app so that it renders our components. When it's done, it should look like this. And that'll be it for this particular one here. So let's go back to there. And to here, let's get rid of this and replace it with this. Save. It's giving us an error message in here. Error element type is invalid. Expected a string or a class. Got an object. You likely forgot to export your component from the file it's defined in, or you might have mixed up default and named imports. Check the render method of app. Well, maybe I remove that. I don't know. No, that's still in there. This looks complete. Huh. I'm going to get rid of that import React from React line. I don't know if we did not need that. I don't think that'd give me an error, but you never know. And that changed absolutely nothing. So app.js should read like this. I think I have everything that's in there. It is app.js. And it is still giving me an error message. All right, let's jump back here. So this is our filter, unless I didn't put that in, I don't know. And I didn't. There you go. So I'm going to go back to the app.js because it originally did not have the import React from React. I'm going to remove that. And it was giving me the error because I didn't have any code in my filter button. There you go. All right. And that's it for this article. We've gone into some depth on how to break your app up into components and render them efficiently. Now it says we're going to go and look at how to handle events in React and start adding some interactivity. So looks like we've got two parts of interactivity, but we'll go through the first part next.